Hello and welcome to the episode of The Card Show. In this week's episode, we'll be answering some of the top questions in the sports card hobby currently. I know you're probably thinking you had a Q&A pod last week. This one is more to do with sort of like the top 10 questions that don't always come to me, just on the web, the interweb, or that may have been asked in person, or just the biggest questions in the hobby, I suppose. So without further ado, let's get into it, right? Number one, what cards are undervalued right now? Probably one of the biggest questions, right, in the hobby. For flippers and investors, right? What cards are undervalued right now that they can get and hopefully profit from in the future? There is, I think, it's hidden gems in a lot of different sports. There's also a lot of hidden gems sports-wise. I think if you're looking at tennis at the moment, looking at the old Alcaraz, Yannick Sinner sort of rivalry that's going to go on, potentially, fitness levels be a big factor in this, but for the next 10 plus years, that's going to have a big impact, right? And not only sort of culturally as well, I think, but also on the tennis court, that's going to be the next sort of Nadal, Federer, Djokovic sort of scenario, right? So that's going to be really interesting. I think the bigger these athletes get as well, the more sort of people may get into memorabilia, and signed balls are always big at sort of events and stuff like that. Obviously, you can't really sign a racket too well, so sports cards could be another way for people to get that sort of memorabilia. It'd be interesting if Tops, because they're the licensed for tennis, if they sort of pushing that sort of stuff, they start doing pop-ups at Wimbledon and stuff like that, Roland Garros and other sort of places, US Open. So yeah, that's a very interesting one. Well, I think there's quite a few in different sports. I think if you look at sort of the NBA at the moment, there'll be players in there that are going to ball out right now. I mean, if you look at Shea, he's just come off his MVP in the finals, first chip. His prices are down. So, I'm sure we mentioned it throughout this pod a few times, but this is where tools like marketmoviesapp.com, available in the App Store as well. That's where those sort of tools come in helpful, because you can see data for the sales history for the past 365 days, the longer, depending on what package you get. So, there's always that. That's how I try and find a lot of cards. I also, a lot of it is it's sort of how the eye test, right? You can sort of watch people and look at the market for them and think, do you know what, they are going to go, they are going to pop, they are going to go big soon. So that's another way. But yeah, if you want to use tools like marketmovesapp.com, if you want to go, head over to there, use the code MAHOMES, MAHOMES. You get a 14-day free trial and 20% off any package you choose for life. It'll definitely help you make plays like this, whether it is for investing purposes or it is for your personal collection. But yeah, I know it doesn't really answer what cards. Maybe I'll give you a couple. Yeah, I give Shea. Shea was undervalued. I think thinking of NFL, I always say this: backup quarterbacks. We've seen it now. There's quite a few out, right? I think as of just saying this now, I think Anthony Richardson's just gone in for the Colts, so he was the backup to Daniel Jones, who started off well. I don't know if that was a Daniel Jones injury or just because they were coasting. I don't know what's going on there. But yeah, these backup quarterbacks. Obviously, Lamar Jackson's out. His play was not done too well today, but they always sort of come in. Obviously, with Joe Burrow, So yeah, there's always potential there. Joe Flacco's on the one. It's been replaced already by Doug Gabriel. So yeah, there's quite backup quarterbacks is sort of the one there. But yeah, undervalued as well. In soccer, you could argue that a lot of your Fodens, your De Bruyne's are undervalued. But the market dictates, right? If the people aren't paying it and they ain't investing in players, then yeah. But I always use tools I personally use marketmovesapp.com. That's how I find cards like that if I'm interested in. If not, again, it's eye appeal for me. Doesn't really answer what cards are, but that's how I find the cards that are undervalued and try and profit from them. But yes, I did give you a few players, so I hope that I did help on that question. Got on a few sports here. Which players are best long-term investments. Okay, interesting. Again, another one for sort of like the investor flippers, I'd say. Prospects versus established stars, risk versus stability. Which players are best long-term? Right. Yeah, I have this sort of idea, this thoughts process that when you're looking long term, you're sort of thinking at the people that are reminding people now that in the 10, if you're looking 10 years is long term, I don't know if 5 will classes, but let's say 10 years, 10 years time, going to either get back into hobby or still be in hobby, have the money available to buy the people that they remember nostalgia wise. Sort of kind of like what vintage is, right? The old people, and so on. And then you get to a stage where you, people getting into the hobby in 5, 10 years time will remember maybe Mahomes, maybe he'll be the guy. I can't remember him as what growing up. I'm sure he'll be playing just about them, but yeah, 2017. It's now 25 years, so 2035. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, just stuff like that. I think you goats of this era because of social media as well. I think they'll have a longer sort of a longer higher ceiling. If that makes sense. Like your Pelés, your Maradonas, obviously great for me and my era. Again, Pelé was way before mine, but do you know what I mean? Like that was sort of the guy that everyone talked about. I think Ronaldo and Messi, because of social media, because of the limelight they've got, what they do. I think obviously Messi's going to have a team in the MLS, part of his contract. Whether Ronaldo goes into acting, I'm hearing, or whether he owns a team himself, or whether he becomes a manager, I think he'll still be very relevant. I don't think he'll just disappear into the limelight. It's talks about LeBron, right? He wants a team in Vegas, I think. So he's going to be relevant. So these sort of people are relevant. So Tom Brady, he stayed relevant owning car shops. I mean, his prices are kind of low considering what they should be, considering the guy who's a cope with the sport, consistently in the hobby. I think there's a fear factor that because he's so close with Fanatics and Michael Rubin, that he's just going to pump out autos. Kind of what they did with that. So was it a CGI card where we sort of put him on a baseball player's uniform and, and he did inscribe, didn't he, if baseball doesn't work out, it's football sort of thing. And I think there's that fear that it's just going to be a lot of pumped out products. Like 2027, I think he can be inducted into Hall of Fame. So they're going to do like a Tom Brady Hall of Fame, sort of like his greatest wins over the years. It's sort of box sets, kind of what they did with what Panini did with Caitlin Clark. But for Little Auto, it's kind of what Panini doing at the moment with Mahomes, right? Celebrating his career so far, and it was some moments, some games with autos. We'll start to see something similar with Brady. So we'll start seeing just loads and loads of Brady autos over the next 5-10 years. I think that there's that sort of concern. So maybe people aren't as bullish on him. But yeah, I always say that the GOATs of the current GOAT debate people are going to be best sort of long term holds. I think it's risky with the prospects with like Liam Miles. He's a kid that everyone's like massively pumping at the moment. Rio something from Liverpool, Rio Namagnov. Whatever his name was. Yeah, ridiculous prices for his cards. I think he's got one prem goal so far. I don't know. He starts obviously Liverpool on a 3-game losing streak. He's just so risky because injury. Let's see, Miles out currently, not a major one, but he's out. Obviously, we don't know what's going to happen in their career. Yes, with Messi, his career and Ronaldo's career went over, so something could go wrong there, and even after that, they could do something. But I think they're sort of cemented, aren't they? Like, I think Messi could slap a kid, and then the next day he could put out a statement, apologise. I think we'd forgive him. So yeah, that's where I'd go the sort of current era goats for long-term investments. I still think vintage has a big play as well. Because I think that's a very, I want to say very grown. I think people get into vintage when you get into cards, right? You sort of learn the cards. The more you like cards, the more you learn about cards, the more you learn about it, the more history you go back into. And I think that always have a mainstay. So, the Mantles, always have a place, and yeah, they will always be good as well, especially because of how old they are. I'd like to see more sort of the card bear stuff, that sort of spike as well, but we'll see. Uh, Number three, when is the right time to buy or sell? Seasonality and market cycles, big events like playoffs or Hall of Fame inductions. Um, yeah, I think seasonality has a massive factor because when it's leading up to a sport season kicking off, you sort of have this demand, right? Everyone's talking about it, and it sort of works well with how it is in the car of the National Nav Fanatics Fest. Obviously, the last couple have been right before that as well. So there's always a big hype in the card hobby as well, leading into that sort of August, September of preseason NFL, start of the season September, basketball in October. So you always see sort of spikes like that. Christmas time can be a bit of a weird one because a lot of people are trying out just before December, trying to get some money in, and some people, playoffs will loom into people in NFL, and you'll see some sort of a lot of sales, but sales will be down. It's a weird one. Playoffs obviously are always a big chance. Hall of Fame inductions surprisingly do have a bit of a spike. Nothing major, but yeah, a bit of a spike. Again, another reason to get tools like marketmoversapp.com. The code's there, guys. Mahomes, there we go, MAHOMES. 14-day free trial, 20% off any package you choose for life. 20% off. It's definitely worth it. Even just a 14-day free trial. Just jump on the trial, go through the stuff. I always say this: go through the trial are the biggest package. Use all the stuff and then feel like just get a feel for it. What you use, what you don't use, and then take it from there. It's always the best way, I think. You sort of that way you don't want to start on a low package and think, oh, would I use that? Would I use that? Oh, I missed out on that. Oh, this isn't as good. Go for the biggest package. It's 14 days for free. 2 weeks of free, free charge to try it, and just cancel it. You're like, okay, do you know what? I don't need all this. Maybe I can do the tier below, but drop down. 20% off the whole package for life. So it makes 100% safe. In that sense, it's the thing to do. But yeah, and again, it will help you see these. It will show you by sport, the ups and downs. It will show you by the player, the ups and downs. And you'll see how it coincides with that June, July, August, that November, December, beginning of the year. Sometimes like the Jan, Feb, if teams are getting to playoffs, and you'll see it with different sports, different times. So yeah, that's definitely what I'd say there. Another one as well, a sneaky one, is obviously any sort of news publicity, whether someone is in news for good or bad. There's another one. And, the controversial one we talked about a few weeks ago is obviously a dead death. If a player is to pass away, unfortunately, it's a big selling marker. How do I spot market manipulation or pump and dumps? Again, data apps, even eBay, you'll see sort of cards who was wanted again. I think it's that Rio guy in Liverpool who was, I think it was to 5. He went for like $9,000. So people were saying, oh, and mine's worth $5,000, and I've got the one of one that's worth 9, and this and the other. And again, it didn't get paid for. The rumors it was sort of shilled, and it was relisted again. So data always helps. eBay's a free and easy tool to look at. It's sold completed. 130 point as well. There's a free app where you can check that sort of stuff. And always be careful, like who's. If I've got 500 Tom Brady cards that I'm trying to sell, and I'm telling you, I invest in the GOAT. It's all about the GOAT. He's the GOAT of the sport. 7 championships, more than any team. No one's going to get to that height again. Buy Brady, buy Brady, buy Brady. You go on my store, or you look at my Instagram stories, I'm selling Brady's. Can't really be trusted, can I? Why am I telling you to buy Brady? It's time to buy him, and I'm selling him. right? So pay attention to them sort of things. You guys are smart enough. Listen to this podcast, right? You follow me, so obviously smart enough. That's the way I see it. So yeah, these are one of the best ways. Again, I think when you do eye appeal, like I've done it a few times and watched certain players, and then you hear someone talk about someone, you think, they're not that good. This is interesting. I think another one is obviously this is more to do with sets as well. Like you'll see people pump certain sets, and again, it's usually a breaker, right? Well, I've got the latest Donruss, get involved. And we know Donruss historically, yes, it's like the first product, the first rookies, but usually not in the team uniform. It's a paper set that people don't really care about a couple weeks afterwards, and it's not something. It's not really a card that goes so much. So yeah, that's how you do that one. What are the safest places to buy and sell cards? So this is interesting now because I feel a lot of places have invested a lot in sports cards, which is always a good sign. And a lot of people they've changed how they do transactions and protecting people. Obviously, at eBay have added that authenticity guarantee for like 249, I think it is. So it goes to them first. So as a buyer and a seller, you sort of protected, right? So as a buyer, you send it over, and as soon as they say this is it, this is the card, and send it to the buyer, you know that guy can't be like, oh, it's come this, that, the other, and get a refund. No, he's not come because eBay like, hey, we've had the card, we know the card's good condition, we send it to you, we're Gucci. Unless the chain doesn't come, and I think eBay will cover that. But if it's lost in transit from eBay to them, then everyone is fine. And again, as a buyer, you're covered because it goes to the authenticity. If they say, "Hey, this card isn't legit," your money's back to you. That card gets back to that person. Everyone's happy. So eBay, I've mentioned before, eBay probably one of the best places just because of the sheer volume. Everyone seems to have eBay. Sheer volume of cards on there. You can find whatever you want. Again, if you're doing cards a bit less than that money, then yeah, they're more of a risk. Always check people's sort of feedback, and they say that consignments are usually good. A lot of people use consignments on there, so there's always that. The PWCC, Golden, Fanatics now has their own. I would stay away from places like Vinted or Depop, just because I don't think they have the sort of safeguarding issue. I think it's just a case of you buy it and they just send it straight to you, and you got to hope for the best. Card shows as well. Card shows are quite easy. There's obviously funny stories of being a vendor and people, went to pay PayPal and they do goods and services, or they try and claim it back a few days later. He's like, oh god. And let me just clarify this part: the whole goods and services. If you do a transaction with someone, Instagram, wherever it may be, and you don't really know them, goods and services always protect yourself. At a card show, you physically have the card in front of you, and you look at the card and go, "Hey, I'm interested in this," and they say, "Yeah, I haven't got change." And you do PayPal, and you say, "Cool." Don't do goods and services. Don't be that guy, because then they lose out on fees. You just pay the man. You can trust him there and then. It's fine. You have the card. You can literally go on the PSA app if it's PSA graded and check. As most companies have a cert registration, you can check to make sure it's legit. Don't be doing stuff like this. So yeah, they're probably the best and safest places to buy and sell cards. Oh, so should I grade XYZ cards, and which company? PSA, BGS, SGC, or CGC? Cost/benefit of grading versus keeping raw. Again, this is purely personal. I would say, on some respects, if it is your personal collection, then it's up to you. If you want to keep it in its top loader and its mag, maybe you've got it in an old green labeled CGC slab, and you think, do you know what? I don't care. That's fine. If you're looking to maximize profit for this card, then we currently know that PSA is the number one, right? Everyone wants PSA 10. If you have a PSA 10, the card commands what it commands. It's a price that people are willing to pay. It's a price that is crazy. And what's crazier is that a 9, which is by all purposes and tendencies, whatever the word is there, is very good condition. You the naked eye, it's kind of hard to spot the difference. So laptop 9 is what I always say. But yeah, we know that, and it just go in the market, does it? But we know that PSA is a place to go. I think BGS would have been the place, and you'll find a lot of the older stuff in BGS. BGS Pristine Black Label stuff still commands a high price because it's so rare and it's sort of supposed to be the best of the best of the best of the best. So SEC, unfortunately for them, it looks like they're going down the pan. They probably will, honestly, they'll cease to exist, but they're shell themselves. They're down there at the moment. CGC is massive on the rise. I probably put PSA number 1, CGC now at number 2. And then, between BGS, SEC, God knows. Another sneaky one I'd say as well is AGS. Whether they do much on the sports side, we'll see. But I like the fact that they're, AI grading company. They keep the prices low and turnaround times fast. So, shout out to them. How do I protect my cards and avoid damage? I get many ways. We talked about this not long ago, didn't we? Storage of cards. Penny sleeve top loader is like the basics, right? The top loader is the basics. And it will provide a bit of protection. You then have the option of taking it out and putting it into a mag, which is a thicker plastic. You have the option to encapsulate it with a grading company. And again, it's kind of what we were talking about a minute ago. You have the options of sending it to anywhere because it's your personal card. You may just go to the quickest and cheapest, which may be like an MGC or an Ace grading because it's local to me in England. I get it around quick time. So it is now an AGS UK as well. So I could send it to them knowing I'm going to get it back in like 2 weeks. I think MGC and Ace have like a 3-day turnaround and stuff like that. So there's them options. A bit more pricey, obviously, but yeah, there's options there to get the car back really quick. No anxiety of getting lost or having to send it to America, wait 3 or 4 months for the PSA to grade it and get it back. Maybe have a problem with customs, this, that, the other. And they're having to pay fees in there. I mean, obviously, at the moment, they sort of stopped sort of things, but I think somehow middlemen seem to be getting away with sending cards. Maybe we should get some middlemen back on here. Maybe get a good little round table with like Jim and Aaron and stuff like that. But yeah, there is that as well. And then obviously there's the other side of that of not only are they in the encapsulated grading company services sort of plastic encasement, you have sort of like graded guards, slab mags. You then obviously have the briefcases. Yeah, that's going to keep it as protected as you can be. I know some people like to do like the airtight sort of fire resistant flood proof vault boxings, which are obviously mega expensive, but if your collection's worth a lot, you might be able to do it for your house, because if you do have a fire or a flood, the last thing you want to do is get it a bit damaged. How can I tell if a card is fake, altered, or reprinted? Spotting counterfeits and shade sellers. So a fake graded card usually is a lot easier to tell, because again, like I said before, a lot of grading companies will have a sort of a certification registry, so you have to type in a cert number or a QR code to scan or something. And if nothing comes up or a different card comes up, you know that then is dodgy. Altered, again, usually if it's graded, it'll have a say altered. Sometimes it's just authentic, I think is like SGC. Yeah, just stuff like that would usually tell you. Again, same with reprints, and it's in there. When it is raw, is where it gets a bit difficult. So if a card is fake and it's raw, and you see it in someone's sort of flick through box, you may have a bit more pressure to write, because you're at a show, for instance. There's a lot of people there trying to get to that stuff as well, and you might feel pressure to like, oh well, I've not seen it before, I'm gonna just buy it, I pay the price, and then you find out it's fake later on. Take the time. Don't feel overly pressured. But hey, I've not seen it before. I'm just gonna try and find a set. go on to search engines and look for the set it's from. Look for the let's say it's a Caleb Williams 2025 Prism, for instance, that I've not seen before. It's a lightning one. I go, okay, well, let's go through 25 Panini Prisms. And there's a checklist. It'll show you all the cards. It'll tell you all the cards and all the inserts, all the parallels, and you'll find pictures of this sort of stuff. And if you don't see a lightning one on there, then guess what? It's probably going to be fake, right? It's probably one of the best ways to go through that sort of stuff. Altered is an interesting one because you have to know sort of the card size. Again, if you are there and diving direct, and you might be lucky enough to find a legit one and a fake one next to each other, you can go, hey, this looks a bit small, that one. You should sort of, closer together. But I think there's a few apps that you can scan cards in. There is centering tools as well that you can take with you and have around. I know Third Down do some. I think they're free of charge last time I checked, but don't quote me on that because I might get me in trouble. But everyone's going to Third Down saying, you got some free like centering tools and this other, so you can measure cards, this sort of stuff, and the thickness of cards. And they're like, yeah, it's not free though. Who said it was? Oh, here we go. Yeah. So that'd be the way to get around that. And reprinting again is something similar. It's, it is knowing the product. I think this is the problem as well. I think a lot of people, because they got into investing into cards through sort of other investors, not through sports cards people, they don't really know cards that well. So when they see a card that's reprinted, they may not know. And yeah, they could invest a lot of money in a reprint that's worth pennies. One of the, not pennies, but one of the big ones like this in let's say recent times is the 1996 Flair, right? The Decade of Excellence Jordan. A lot of people have obviously fell for that or purchased that card thinking it's the 86 Flair, at a fraction of the price, right? They think they're getting a bargain, and then they realize eventually that it's the wrong card. So yeah, knowledge. I think there's books out there as well that will help this sort of stuff. I think Ryan Nolan did a book. I think it's called Spotting Fakes. It's on Amazon. Breakout Cards. I think that's his website, his YouTube channel. But yeah, that is presented more towards the vintage stuff because that's his knowledge. But a lot of it is applicable because it's about sets, knowing sets and sizes, etc., etc. So yeah. What products or sets should I be ripping / holding / stealing? Keeping sealed, so I presume that's what I mean there. Modern wax versus vintage packs, flagship versus premium products. So when it comes to ripping as an investor, I would say do not rip any. Holding is very interesting because if you were holding 2017 Prism NFL, you'd probably be laughing right now because of the Mahomes aspect of that. These Prism silver, because obviously all Prisms that year were silver. I think the PSA 10's a few thousand, the PSA 9's about not far from $1,000. It's an expensive card to have. It's a good £600-700 sort of card raw, right? So yeah, that could be interesting. I think as much as, it obviously depends on your budget as well, but as much as we like to say there's certain sets that we know people like. We know people like Prism. We see the data. Prism is a very liquid card. People love Prism. Select is another one. Optic, Contenders Optic, because there's a rookie ticket, auto and stuff like that. But we and they're sort of a good price point where it's not overly expensive, but not the cheap products. It's not like we're, saying Store Spectra or Store Phoenix, for instance, or Store Score. Those are the ones that you wouldn't really want to be holding because they don't really have much value, especially with paper products and stuff like that. And then on the more expensive side, if you can store a good year of flawless, maybe Luka's Doncic rookie year, or maybe it's Mahomes' rookie year, them sort of people, and those sort of sets, then yes, that's but that's very expensive to sort of get those cases. So yeah, but ripping wise, and again, when it comes to like your personal stuff, whatever. If you like World Cup stuff, then rip World Cup stuff, store it, do what you want with it. If it's your personal stuff, even like for future. The World Cup stuff is always interesting because again, if you feel like Messi winning it finally. So you get the Prism from that year and the product from that year, then you could be quizzed in the future. It could be Messi and Ronaldo's first. It could be Messi and Ronaldo's last. Maybe it's Jamal's first. Maybe it's Mbappe's first. Lots of stuff. So I think Mbappe will break the goal scoring record for the World Cup. Which it is what it is. And then last but not least, I believe. What's the best way to build connections and community in the hobby? Networking at shows is obviously a great way. I think definitely going back to the first few shows in the UK and popping up, there was a lot less of that. It was a lot like a market, like market store. Like people just go have a little browse and sort of muster off and go away, and it wasn't as live as it is now. I think because everyone's got cameras, everyone's trying to do content. People are a lot more receptive to it all. Everyone's a lot more talkative, which is good. But yeah, it's a great way. Social media, again, the amount of people you follow on social and they'll follow you. That's a great way, liking, commenting on posts, responding to posts and comments. Trade nights at shows as well are always good because it's some other sort of laid back atmosphere, just tables, chairs. If it is your thing, obviously it's not something I would advise, but group breaks, if you get involved in breaks, there's always a good community on there where you sort of, other people will be chatting with the breaker, and if they're a good breaker, they have some good banter and good chat. And then people just in the chat as well, sort of thing. So yeah, that would be that one. I suppose we're starting to get shops as well, and they'll do sort of nights. So that's another great one. But yeah, and that's the top 10 questions of the hobby right now, apparently. So I hope some are useful to you guys. Until next time. Peace.